Welcome to the party!
Welcome back to the Gauntlet Iceberg. On our last visit, we covered the first 3 tiers. Today, we'll be continuing our descent through tiers 4 through 6. Most of today's entries fixate on the behind-the-scenes features, obscure details, and some of the stranger lore bits, from both true and EU canon. One more thing I want to clarify is that this iceberg was made before this channel, and that some of the lore bits we labeled as very obscure aren't quite as rare as they once were, both because of our content and the growth of EU, but there is still plenty of stuff we haven't highlighted, so sit back and relax as we kick off today's episode. The devs are canon. This is stating the fact that in dev lore, the developers, or rather their in-universe characters, are gods of the Gauntlet world, and that the secret characters are how they appear when taking an earthly form. This will be further explored in an upcoming recap on dev lore. PS1 and DC prototypes, like Dark Legacy, PS1 and DC Legends both have demo builds of their very own. Dreamcast in particular has 2. The PlayStation 1 has some more noteworthy aspects, such as the violent crash caused by engaging the Chimera. PS1 Dev Lab. It's mostly just getting to this room that is the hard entry. It's this secret room in PS1's A2, which in and of itself is a bonus level. This room has scrolls that work as in-game credits. We'll come back to this room later on the iceberg. Days of Old. The Days of Old is an era in Gauntlet lore, spanning from 1000 ADW to 3000 ADW. Many historical and globally relevant events unfold during this period, including the birth and death of Russia, the rise and fall of the Temporian Golden Age, Second Jin War, and the original reign of Baron Gulch, before his transformation into the terrifying Lich. Local populations. This refers to the collective populations of the 8 realms, particularly the off-screen masses. This can include factions, such as the Desert Magi, but it's mostly talking about the regular people that don't belong in any relevant lore group. The Mountain Kingdom has the fewest local communities, with the Minotaur tribes being the only ones named besides the Orcs and the Mountain Men. The Temporal Zone is understood to have the largest population of any realm, containing the Jewel City of Temperance, which can be seen in detail in Gauntlet 7 Sorrows, particularly in the levels Imperial City, Imperial Palace, and Throne Room. The total population number of the Gauntlet Banorn is not disclosed, but it is estimated to be between 12 and 15 million, leaving vast stretches of virgin forests and uninhabited fjords. Pojo origin story. I'm just gonna come out and say it. Pojo is a dev god. Canonically, he has to be, and let me break down why. Firstly, Pojo lives in his hen house, which itself is housed in a liminal space, and we know for a fact that he can come and go as he desires. Only devs can create liminal spaces, and only devs can travel between them freely. Thus, Pojo is a dev. It is unclear which dev he is, how long he's taken the form of a chicken, or really anything else. Some believe he is a dungeon dev, living and hiding from Bennett's, as seen with Fossilis, another dev that takes the form of a fox. Others have a theory so profound, we'll have to return to it at the end of this series. Regardless of the details, it is clear that Pojo is one of the strongest beings in existence, and is by no means just a chicken. Remember that the next time your friend laughs at you for playing as the fire-breathing poultry. Dungeon Days. Also referred to as the Old Canon, the Dungeon Days is an era of Gauntlet lore that makes up the timeline prior to the Dev Civil War. In this era, the world as we know it is made up of colored dungeon mazes, where the Dev gods were playing what was essentially cosmic chess, with Gauntlet 1 through 4 taking place in this era. The Dungeon Days ended with the beginning of the Dev Civil War, in which rebel devs fought for the rights of their creations. Doug Lawrence. Doug Lawrence is the voice of Summoner and Scorn in Dark Legacy. He is often confused with Mr. Lawrence, the voice of Plankton from SpongeBob SquarePants. But from what we can tell, they are 2 different people, as they have 2 different profiles on IMDb, but we haven't officially debunked it, so it's still possible I suppose, but unlikely. Ataria. The word Ataria can be found in the fences to both the Province Realm Gate and the Haunted Cemetery. In lore, Atari is the name of the cemetery, not the town, but some people refer to Ghost Town as Ataria during the Age of Scorn, considering the whole place is pretty much a cemetery at that point. Dev Element. Also called Dev Power, Dev Element is the result of combining the 4 colored elements: fire, lightning, acid, and light in equal proportions. Raw Dev Element takes an extreme amount of energy to conduct, but if done properly, it can do literally anything, as that is what it is, the power of the Dev Gods. Summoner is the only non-Dev character that can emit Dev power, and even conduct it to a small degree, which is how he's able to warp the characters out of the liminal spaces. Light Breath. Light Breath is a cut item. It would have acted like acid or fire breath, dealing light-based wave damage. Remnants of this item are still in the code, with an item slot existing, albeit unfinished. There is even a voice line of Summoner introducing it. This is how you would hear it in the game, had this item come to be.
Yellow Wizard has Light Breath.
Jester lore. The Jester holds a weird place amongst the other characters for being a dream spirit. Because of this, he doesn't have a past, present, or future, as we tend to interpret someone's lifetime. Being from the dream world means he is an abstract consciousness of unfound chaos. What sets the Jester apart from other dream spirits like the Wraith or the Imps is that he is very social, leading to his friendship with Summoner, and his energies feed from joy and positive emotions. In contrast, the Wraith feeds from pure darkness, the Right Hand feeds from rage, and things like the Hornet base their energies off of fear. Every dream spirit is different, but in Jester's case, the chaotic coin flip determined he was a mad, yet genuine individual that has it in him to care about others, even those not from his side of the void. No keep items. This refers to how sometimes items will disappear from the player's inventory when their zone is refreshed. The go-to item when discussing this is stop time. If you try to leave a level with stop time in your inventory, it will be gone when you load into the tower. The same thing applies to 5-way shot in F1, as if that item wasn't hard enough to obtain. Toxic Spire is near Forsaken Province. The Spire base is located on a small island west of Twinion Town. It is so close, in fact, that the Plague Fiend's fumes rose to dead across the bay. Nathan Acorn Pooley. Mr. Pooley was a programmer for Gauntlet Legends and Dark Legacy. He has his spot in the Gauntlet lab right here, and his iconic voice line.
Oh mama shawling.
Mr. Pooley's in-universe character, referred to as just Acorn, is one of Bennett's top advisors, and actually convinced his friend to wage war against their other siblings. Ironically, Acorn is also a Dungeon Dev sympathizer, believing Bennett took it a little too far. Nude Valkyrie character. I mentioned this in my 100 Facts video, but yes, this is real. In the game files, exists a Valkyrie variant with no clothes and black sensor bars. In arcade, you can play as her with this code, but in console, you need to use an AR code to play as her. NJB123 audio dump. For a while, if you went looking for Gauntlet sound effects, you would likely stumble upon a thread, where a user named NJB123 hosted a large download containing most of Gauntlet Dark Legacy sound effects. It's missing some of the more notable ones, such as Dwarf's voice lines,
Modest rations.
or Death's iconic scream. When researching for this video, I could not find the thread, but NJB has uploaded the sounds to the sound resource, where they can still be downloaded. For anybody looking for sounds not included in their packages, let us know on Discord, and we'll send them over. Devs on coins. The treasure coins dropped by the bosses contain images of the developers. The bronze ones have Mike Halley, the silver ones have KJ Holm, and the gold ones have the man himself, Stephen Bennett. Mike Halley. Manager Mike is the producer of Legends and Dark Legacy. He is often represented with his iconic red hat and mustache. He is seated in the dev lab right here, has 2 voice lines,
Viva la Gauntlet!
Hey, what are you doing in our lab?
and his in-game character can be played with this code. In dev lore, Mike's in-universe counterpart works closely with Bennett's, and is considered one of the more powerful solar devs. He apparently was close with the Jackal Order prior to its collapse, and informed Rasha of his greater purpose. Broken PS1 rooms. This refers to the extra liminality of PS1 Legends coin levels. Perhaps it is the lack of motion, the strange lighting, or the low poly, but PlayStation 1's coin levels are extra eerie, with the psychedelic stun chamber being the most guilty in my opinion. The stillness of the mushrooms and the intense brightness makes this room much creepier than its other variants. Post-GDL lore. EU's continuity covers the events throughout the next 57 years after the death of Garm. The most relevant event is inarguably the Thunder Space War, in which the cadet attempts to return to the Banorn from a liminal space, releasing the Sentinels of Log, which wage war on the world. Other events include the rebirth of the Knights of Sky and the Desert Magi, and how the world changed for the better following Scorn's defeat. Summer and Garm are brothers. We mentioned this before when discussing the Wizards, but the fact in and of itself is not very prevalent within the series, but is true, being introduced in hard lore in console legends. GameCube Revs. Gauntlet Dark Legacy has 3 official builds on GameCube. First, there was the Rev Zero, which was released in North America. The Rev Zero is what most people have, lacking boss health bars and containing various other bugs. Next came the release of the PAL region, which improved many of the bugs featured in the American release. Finally, they re-released the game in the States with the PAL patches, in the build we call the Rev 1. Physical Rev 1s are pretty rare, and they're generally priced a lot higher compared to the Rev 0. The PAL and Rev 1 build fixed a lot of issues, but not all of them, many of which have since been fixed with the community-made 1.3 patch, which we discussed before. Twinian Town. Twinian Town is the actual name of Ghost Town and the Forsaken Province. And the Forsaken Province as a whole is called Twinian Province. This term comes from console Legends, with the realm we refer to as Legacy Twinian Town, or Legends Twinian Town. This realm features variants of G1, G3, K2, and a variant of K3 called the Toxic Airship. This realm was split into the Province and Sky Dominion for Dark Legacy, and the Toxic Airship was overhauled into Sky Shipyards. The Province region is still called Twinian Province canonically, but the term does not show up at all within Dark Legacy. Coin Room real names. In console Legends, Summoner introduced the coin rooms the same way he does with regular levels during load. If you dig through the files of Dark Legacy, you would discover that Summoner has a line for every room, even the new ones. This is how they would have played were they implemented.
You are now entering Alien Crop Circle. You are now entering the Gauntlet Treasure Room. You are now entering Space Station number 5. You are now entering Cloud 9. You are now entering the Psychedelic Chamber. You are now entering the Gauntlet Lab. You are now entering the Abandoned Beacon. You are now entering Pojo's Henhouse. You are now entering Shadow Maze.
So if you ever wanted to know the full names of the coin levels, here they are. Unused warrior character. In the files, you'll find this unused model of a red warrior. This character is referred to as Old Thor, and strangely, has a much higher resolution than most of the assets in the game. If you bind Old Thor to a code in the vanilla build, the game will crash. However, the 1.3 patch has made this unused character completely playable. Set your name to Cybmos to play through the game as Old Thor. Unused voice lines. There are various voice lines from Summoner and the heroes that never found a place in the game. There are the victory lines.
Yahoo!
Yaha! Ha-cha-cha-cha! I have prevailed!
Which played after defeating a boss in Arcade Legends, but never again. And the stumble lines, which were to play if you trampled another player long enough.
Do not slow me down!
What pace is this? Step forth! Step aside!
Interestingly, all of the characters have these lines, even the ones added in Dark Legacy. Summoner has plenty of alternative hints and unused voice lines. Most of these were used in older Legends variants, such as,
A combo move can now be used. You need another player to use the bridge.
and of course,
Welcome to the party!
he also has a couple lines that were never used at all, such as the before mentioned coin room names, or the unused items like Light Breath. Keys on GC and Xbox. The GC and Xbox revs keep track of your shards with these key icons above your hotbar when you load into the tower. The PS2 does not have this. Dungeon Hangman. In A6, you will hear this scream echo through the halls. This yelp belongs to the Dungeon Master, who was captured and tortured by the Lycans, as the Valkyrie was just arriving. The Dungeon Master does have a bit of lore, but I'll save it for now. Renaming of the Stun Chamber. This refers to the bizarre renaming of the Stun Chamber coin level, or S2. In Arcade Legends, it was the Psychedelic Stun Chamber.
The Psychedelic Stun Chamber.
In Console Legends, it was shortened to just Psychedelic Stun.
The Psychedelic Stun.
The prototype audio files contain the complete line with all 3 words, but the one in the final release files has the word stun cut out.
The Psychedelic Chamber.
It's really weird that they did this, especially considering the voice line almost went entirely unused. Yet in every release, they took the time to meddle with it. We have no idea why this is the case. If any of you have any theories, feel free to let us know. Bad dubs and translations. We joked about this in our 100 Facts video, but some of the international translations for Dark Legacy are odd. The Japanese one is apparently particularly atrocious. Arcade Cloud 9. Cloud 9 was completely redone toward the end of console release. The original version is extremely more forgiving, providing a much larger platform with a concrete hitbox, and alternative textures. Difficulty aside, I find the arcade version of this room to be much more aesthetically pleasing. It's really a shame we lost this, but it can still be experienced in the .137 build. Grimdim. If you look closely at the province headstones, you'll see the name Grimdim. It might look like this guy died 1,000 times, but in EU at least, Grimdim is the name given to unidentified remains, as seen with pseudonyms like John Doe. The real life reason for this was because Midway is all about the details. Gauntlet Paths of Evil. Paths of Evil is a fan novelization of the Dark Legacy quest, published by Richard White, with permissions from Midway. The book is not considered a canon source for lore, due to blatant contradiction of on-screen events, such as the characters having different names. If you haven't read it, I say check it out if you're interested. Joe Layford. Mr. Layford is the primary composer for Dark Legacy and the original Gauntlet Legends. He has his portrait and room in the lab, including his instrumental setup. Interestingly, he is the only dev whose in-universe character has a completely different name. The reason why is explained in the next tier, the Toxic Airship. As mentioned earlier, the Toxic Airship is a console-exclusive level, in which the characters traverse a floating pirate ship. One thing pretty cool about this level that was cut from the Sky Shipyard was the view of the surface. You can see the farm plot of Twinion Town on the ground below. N64 and PS1 both have distinct builds of this zone. In my opinion, N64 has a better layout, but PS1 has a superior score, which we have used in our videos fairly often. Lich in Seven Sorrows. This is a false rumor about Dark Legacy's Lich having a reference in Seven Sorrows Plague Village level. According to the rumor, the Hand of the Damned can be seen sticking out of the ground, but this has since been debunked. I have personally scanned both the level and the files for any reference to the Lich, and came out empty-handed. I am not sure how this got started, but there is more than one platform that have referenced it, including the Gauntlet Wiki. This is honestly a very interesting story, so let me know if you want a deep dive on Gauntlet's biggest hoax. Stock sound origins. The source files for some of Gauntlet's sound effects have since been found, such as Dreams, the desert ambience. As well as some of the dragon sound effects, and the golem. Shout out to Roach on the Gauntlet Remaster server for discovering most of these. The Sneaky Southside Spangler. This is an extremely niche nickname for this particular coin in S6. I'm sure most everyone is familiar with this coin, but to be familiar with the title, well, now you know. Don't ask me where this came from, but if you ever hear Sneaky Southside Spangler in a Gauntlet hub, that is what they're referring to. DC Legends wackiness. Gauntlet Legends on Dreamcast is actually a port of Dark Legacy. At least, mostly. It has the 8 characters, and the Legends realm groups, Mountain, Castle, Desert, and Forest, as well as Temple, Underworld, and Battlegrounds. But not all is as it seems, especially in the Castle realm. Firstly, the realm starts with G1 of all levels, Poison Fields, and if you end up in A5 later on, you might find a portal to G4, the Mausoleum, but the level is flipped and moved around, which is true for most of them. Some of them are really interesting, like C2's Fissure, and this new rotating trigger. This entry is mostly for the insane weird stuff like hiding a portal to G4 inside A5 rather than the tower. If you've never played DC Legends, definitely give it a go. In many ways, it's a direct rip of Gauntlet Dark Legacy Arcade, using a modded branch of its original engine, just with a few new maps, and a couple of new features added by the Suite branch. It's definitely the oddball of the family, but it's certainly worth a playthrough. Falconist Wiki entry. Remember when I said the wiki is questionable? I want to read this bio somebody wrote about the Falconist. I will say that this has since been removed from the site, but this was real and this happened. Okay, here we go. The Falconist is a variant of the Valkyrie playable character, and like her previous form, is clearly female. She has the head of an eagle with rough gray fur and crimson eyes. Her beak is short and hooked, yellow with a black tip. Gray feathers extend from her shoulders. From the neck-ish area down, she is a curvaceous beauty with average light-colored skin, with the occasional feathers across her form. Like most females in the Gauntlet franchise, the Falconist is a very scantily clad, wearing nothing but a pair of glove-like armbands, if such can be considered attire. Her true clothing is nothing but a simple bikini/vest, including a bikini top which exposes much of her bust, as well as leaving her toned, slender waist with nothing on. The Falconist's only leggings are a thin, strapped bikini bottom which leaves her nearly pantless. Some feathers hang from her waist and barely cover the Falconist's hips. She has also a pair of thigh-length boots with golden decorations and feathers extending from the back. The player has access to the 4 color schemes of the Falconist, which will change the color of her bikini top, armbands, boots, and bikini bottoms. A pair of white wings extend from her back as well. The Falconist proficiently wields a silver and gold sword into battle, and she has a serious but flirty personality. Stats: Strength 350, Armor 500, Magic 350, Speed 350, Sexiness 999. So yeah, this is why I don't refer to the wiki, ever. Hand of the Damned. If you watched our video on the Guardian lore, or even our what if story about the Guardians, then you likely know about the Hand of the Damned. He is a demon of the underworld, gifted to the Lich by Scorn. He was both to provide the Lich with extra firepower, and serve as a mole to Scorn. When it became evident that the Lich had lost to the Sorceress, the Hand took it upon itself to punish him for his failure, dragging him back to the underworld. The Hand does not return to lore following the death of the Lich. Scat holds the whip in the dev lab. He does. You can see it here. According to KJ, it was a reference to how Scat kept the art team on track and made sure they got work done, cracking the whip on them. Metacritic scores. No idea why this is this low, probably because nobody cares what IGN and Metacritic have to say about games, but if you're curious, here they are.
Arcade glitch state. On arcade, if you spam the attack buttons whilst using a legend item against a boss, your character will enter this strange glitch state where your character fails to load certain animations, causing this.
Tier 5 has a lot of file-related entries and more dev stuff. Spuss. Spuss is the name of Joe Layford's character in dev lore. He is called this because that is the name of his audio file. None of the devs that I have asked about this recall why this is the case, though I have not asked Mr. Layford himself. It's an odd thing, because for everyone else, it's their name, but for Joe, it's not. So I assumed Spuss was a nickname, but it wasn't relevant enough for the devs to remember. So at this point, it is yet to be determined. I will point out, however, that the texture of the monitor portrait is called Joe and not Spuss. Jvan. Jvan is another dev, which is also a name taken from an audio file.
You two rocks!
It is most likely a shortened writing of Jonathan, referring to John Paul. Gauntlet Dark Legacy Posting. This is a Facebook page run by an acquaintance of ours. They post Gauntlet Dark Legacy memes and funny content around the game. I am not sure how difficult it is to get into the group, but if you have Facebook, it might be worth looking into. Stig's hair. This is a dev joke seen in the Gauntlet Lab, where Stig, a Munson's skeleton, has a wild afro, while the man himself has the complete opposite. Legend item lore. The backstories of the legend items are well established in Legend's hard canon, which carry over to Dark Legacy. Such entries include the Scimitar of Decapitation belonging to Rasha, and Tarkana and the Parchment of Fire. I'm going to be mean and not reveal any more, as to represent them fully in a future episode on the legend items. Timid with a Pen and Ben Ash covers. These two are secondary musicians for the remake soundtrack, and like Geisha Pool, have various covers of Gauntlet's OSTs on their channel, which are linked in the description. Ben Ash's rendition of Summer's Tower is particularly memorable to me. Barry Leach SoundCloud. Barry Leach is another musician for Gauntlet, composing the Forsaken Province and Sky Dominion tracks used in the arcade and console builds of Dark Legacy. He has a SoundCloud account that used to contain all of his tracks in their raw, uncompressed state, but they have since been removed, sparing only the Lich's Crypt. We'll get back to these uncompressed tracks later on the iceberg, but if you're looking for a taste of the lost albums, check it out below.
Arcade Legends level differences. All of Arcade Legends maps are completely unique. Some of the levels like C4 or D1 have some very noteworthy elements. These strange tunnels in C4 are linked to EU, in which they were made by a giant cobra, who was slain by Tolmesha, the Desert's general, who harvested the venom into the toxic bellows. If you're a fan of Dark Legacy and are interested in some alternative level designs, definitely check out Arcade Legends. The console ports have their own highlights, but are much more distinct from arcade and console Dark Legacy.
Test rooms. In Dark Legacy's files, you will find 3 test levels. T1, which was used to test the trigger functions and mechanics, T2, which tests generators and all items, and T3, which is a strange empty level with a horde of orc bombers. We believe that T3, besides the enemies, represents an empty level in Seagaunt, as in this is what generates when prompting the engine to create a new zone, with the weird potion crystal thing marking the player's spawn.
GDL crash screen. All things considered, Dark Legacy, especially the PS2 release, is a pretty stable game, but crashes do occur. When the engine fails, you are prompted with a screen like this, reading out the error. In all of my years playing, I have probably seen a crash screen 5 or 6 times in a vanilla playthrough. If you want to actually trigger a crash and see this screen for yourself, you can use this spot in J6. If you go with enough items and the right conditions, you can cause the game to render too many animations and fail. This is the only known spot where you can trigger a manual crash consistently.
Console-exclusive levels, A2, K1, J2, and J6 are all console-exclusive zones and do not appear in the arcade release. J2, Haunted Grounds, is in a particularly unique place, as it does exist in the files, but when unused. It was fully restored and implemented with the release of PS2. K1, Mothership, also has some assets, but mostly stuff copied over from the previous level. Like they were starting to make it, but stopped early. Movement of legend items. This refers to the various locations the legend items have appeared over the releases. In arcade, all of the legend items are found in the realm of their matching boss. Scimitar is in A6, Javelin is in K2, and the lamp is in C2. Ed Log. The real person Ed Log is the original creator and designer of the original Gauntlet title. He was a relevant figure beyond just Gauntlet, having a role in other popular games of the era, such as Centipede and Asteroids. In dev lore, Mr. Log's in-universe character, simply referred to as Log, is the creator of the dev gods, and is the supreme power in the universe. He is the only dev that can influence other devs with his abilities, and is credited as the father of all of them. After the events of Gauntlet 1, Log disappears, never to reappear in lore. His departure led to Flanagan and his court taking the roles as Universal Overlords, leaving Bennett's and crew to challenge them later. There is an era of Gauntlet lore known as the Days of Log, in which the multiverse comprised entirely of Log and his proto-creations. We will discuss this more in our upcoming video on dev lore. But to recap, if the devs are gods with a little g, Log is big G. Gauntlet Dark Legacy takes place a decade after the opening cutscene. This is true in EU, with it clearly establishing a 10-year gap and filling in what strings Scorn pulled during that time. The time between Garm's first death and his second is referred to in lore as the Age of Scorn. Even in other continuities, there is a distinguished amount of time between Scorn's arrival and Sumner gathering the heroes. Kerslake for president. In the PS1 lab credit room, you will find this. A campaign poster for Will Kerslake for the then-future 2016 US presidential election. This is likely an inside joke amongst the PS1 team. Just to clarify, Mr. Kerslake did not run in 2016, and he did not become president. Today, it's a bit of a meme in the Gauntlet community. This is kinda what cemented Kerslake as the PS1 KJ. Dev audio bytes named after them in the files. This is just saying that most of the dev voice lines are named after them in the files, which is the main way we have identified them. I say most of them because in the final build, some of them have been changed to just Lab 00 something. But in the 0.137, they are all named correctly. Dungeon. Dungeons was the working title for Gauntlet 1. It was changed to Gauntlet in May of 1985, after Dungeons was claimed by another game, making it legally unavailable. Esbeg. Esbeg is the name of this skeleton in the Carnival of the Lost. Well, it's actually the name of his audio file.
Hey, let me off this thing!
Being short for Skeleton Beg. But it's just kinda stuck as his name in EU. Hammy the Nervous Hamster. If you actually break the Kerslake for President poster mentioned before, you will face off against a nervous, yet mighty, Hammy the Hamster. He moves rather slowly, but he can do a decent bit of damage with his spring and jump attack. He serves no purpose other than to exist, and doesn't drop anything when you beat him. A lot of people like to believe he is modeled after a real-life pet that they had in the studio, but Kerslake implies on Twitter that this likely isn't the case. In lore, Hammy is another animal dev like Pojo, preferring to live in the lab rather than his own liminal space. Hammy was also the second character rendered for the Gauntlet Dark Legacy Remastered project, so even if the game gets cancelled or never comes out, at least we can say that Hammy got what he deserved. Dungeon devs. The term dungeon dev is reserved for dev characters that sided with Flanagan during the dev civil war, but it is mostly just used to refer to the members of the Flanagan court, the first 8 dev gods to come into being, and were trained personally by Log. Following his victory in the dev war, Bennett hunted down the remaining dungeon devs and imprisoned them alongside Flanagan. There are a couple dungeon devs that escaped and are still at large, including Comstock, who was literally hiding in plain sight, taking the role of captain of the Hollow Knights in Anka. There is also Cannon, who was living in the dream world, and Kitus, who Bennett deemed too dangerous to pursue. Carnival staff uses KJ's face. This is a funny little Easter egg in the Lost Carnival, where all of the background posters featuring the staff star the man himself. The reason this was done was almost certainly to stick with the theme of cramming KJ everywhere they could possibly get away with. But the EU about this is actually really interesting. The Carnival spirits refer to KJ as, quote, the Sacred One, which is bizarre considering dream spirits notably don't believe in hierarchy or anything of the sort. This is great evidence that KJ had a deep connection with the Lost Carnival. Some even theorize that KJ actually created it, gathering like-minded dream spirits and uniting them under a common goal and community. It makes a lot of sense, except for why. But it is the dream world, so we're not supposed to ask questions. But this is something that is constantly depicted in the lore, and even the game itself. Let me know what you think about this theory. Was the Jester chosen by a god to lead this community of misfits, or are they just loons trolling us through the fourth wall? Council of Sweet. The Council of Sweet, or maybe Sweat, we're not sure, is the in-universe name for the Sega team devs, such as Kim, Emmy, and Chang. This team operates in a separate lab liminal space, and monitors a different timeline, the one depicted in DC Legends. There are likely several of these alternative sub-factions, but devlore only speaks of 2 of them right now, the other being the Ice Coven, or the PS1 lab. Heroes of Old. The Heroes of Old are 4 characters canonized by Legends manuals, each one living in the days of old and having a connection to one of the legend items. Rasha, Untar, Marker, and Tarkana. Rasha was the Magi chosen and crafter of the Scimitar Decapitation. Untar was a legendary dwarven blacksmith that made the Ice Axe, the one that Korok used to kill the dragon. Marker was a famous explorer whose diving spear was touched by a dev, making it relevant to history. And Tarkana was a Grand Witch who sent the Lich to the grave the first time. She developed the Parchment of Fire for her late husband, who died in the Lich fight. None of these characters are mentioned by name in Dark Legacy, but their legendary items certainly are. Steve likes grape soda. I have no idea where this comes from, but it's referring to Stephen Bennett's lab audio, which is of him taking a drink. If you ask anyone what it is, they'll tell you it's a grape soda. I have no idea who decided this was true, or when. But I guess we just agree that's what it is. KJ Fan Club. We already talked about KJ's iconic appearances throughout the Iceberg, but this entry regards a pretty hilarious story that he was kind enough to share with us. According to KJ, the other devs plastered him all over the game in an effort to, quote, make him famous, with him arguing that nobody would get the joke. In a hilarious twist, the other devs were right. Even before KJ reconnected with the community, he was already a legendary figure within the fandom, for this very reason. I have yet to personally commune with any of the other devs involved in Operation Make KJ Famous, but if any are watching, know that you were right. Empty Acorn folder. Okay, this is really interesting. So, levels in the files are organized like this. You got level, followed by the realm ID, followed by a number. This is where we get dev notation. But in the 0.137 build, there is a folder called level C2_Acorn. It's empty, but its existence is a mystery to us. It's certainly named after the dev Acorn, who we talked about before. Something else really noteworthy is that level C2, the actual C2, is Temple of the Magi, the level in which the Gauntlet Lab is accessed through. The leading theory was that the bonus rooms were originally going to be structured this way, containing the root level and a dev's name to differentiate it, and that this was scrapped in place for the S folder. After all, S1, the first bonus room, is the Gauntlet Lab. The flaw with this theory is that in Arcade Legends, the lab is linked to C4, and in Dark Legacy Arcade, it's C3. Only in console does it show up in C2. I suppose it's still possible, but the real story behind this mysterious folder is unknown. Gauntlet 3. Normally when people talk about the Flanagan gauntlets, they are referring to 1, 2, or 4. Rarely is Gauntlet 3 mentioned, and there is a reason for that. There are actually 2 Gauntlet 3s. Gauntlet, the third encounter, and Gauntlet 3, the final quest, only the former of which is recognized by EU lore. Third encounter was an exclusive to the Atari Lynx, and played much like the other Gauntlets at the time. What set it apart, beyond just being on a handheld, was its wacky character roster. Beyond your standards, you have characters like the Nerd, the Pirate, the Punk, the Robot, and the Gunslinger, to name a few. Some of these guys, like the Punk, were referenced in Midway's Gauntlet with the Punk Stickman. Final Quest was produced by Tenjin and US Gold on early home computers. While many Gauntlet core players consider the gameplay lackluster, playing at an asymmetric angle, it was the first Gauntlet game to feature realms in a kingdom, beyond just your standard colored dungeons. You have Thor the Warrior, Freya the Valkyrie, Questor the Elf, and Merlin the Wizard, as well as the exclusive classes, Draculus the Lizard, Petrus the Rockman, Blizzard the Iceman, and Neptune the Merman, each of which having their own realm, making up the kingdom of Capra. This formula was brought back for Legends, and expanded with Dark Legacy, with Capra acting as a proto to Gauntlet Legends' Banorn continent. While Final Quest and the Kingdom of Capra are not canon to EU in any way, many aspects of Midway Gauntlets look to this game for inspiration, such as the character of Mangus the Wizard being reworked into Sumner, the Lizard Man becoming the Keeper race, and the Demon Capricorn likely inspiring Scorn. Capricorn was also brought into EU, serving as the 6th Prince of Hell. Even though this isn't the best Gauntlet experience, it has its place in its history, and honestly, it has a pretty good soundtrack. Gauntlet DS. In 2008, Backbone Entertainment set out to release a Gauntlet game on the Nintendo DS. Despite being completely finished, the game was cancelled last second and was never released. With that being said, the game was fully playable and has since leaked online. If you find yourself a copy, you can play it in full on a DS emulator. It's actually a pretty solid game. It's no Dark Legacy, but I would argue it's easily on par with some of the classic titles, and is leagues above Dark Legacy on Game Boy. Tier 6 gets into some pretty niche stuff, a couple more file-based entries, and some obscure EU theories. Bob Flanagan. Bob Flanagan was one of the main programmers, alongside Ed Logg, of the original 2D Gauntlet titles, hence why we often refer to them as the Flanagan Gauntlets. He is a large part of Gauntlet's history, and developed its simple yet extremely fulfilling formula, that was made even better in Gauntlet Legends, with awesome worlds and environments to match. In dev lore, Flanagan's character is the firstborn of Logg, and led the devs during the dungeon days. Flanagan's character was a strong believer in dev superiority, believing that anything they created was completely at their mercy, and that they were nothing more than playthings. This narrative was challenged by Bennett's, who argued that their role should be to serve and protect their creations, and allow them to develop into their own people, that their job was to populate the world rather than rule it. This dispute escalated into the event known as the Dev Civil War, with Flanagan leading the dungeon devs and Bennett's leading the resistance. The war was won by Bennett's, who found a way to trap Flanagan and most of his followers, paving the path for the creation of the abandoned world as we know it. Dandy controversy. After the release of Gauntlet 1, John Palovich, designer of another dungeon crawler called Dandy, threatened to sue Ed Logg, claiming that his Gauntlet game stole Dandy's concept, a party of heroes fighting monsters in a dungeon. In the end, no suit was actually filed. While Gauntlet went on to produce Gauntlet 2, and later both 3s, Dandy was reworked into Dark Chambers. Dungeon devs are canon. This is just saying that the dungeon dev characters, Flanagan, Cannon, McBride, and even Logg, are actually canon to EU, and there is even a case to be made that Flanagan's character, in particular, has a basis in hard lore. But we'll get to that later on. Scorn has no influence over the dream world. We talked about this in our episode on the Guardians, but Scorn is completely powerless in the dream world. Had he the willpower and the time, he could be taught to control it to a degree, at least enough to not lose his mind, as what was accomplished by Sumner and the Djinn. But Scorn decided that dedicating his studies to the elements was much more rewarding, and thus never bothered to master the dream world. With that being said, he did use it to hide some stuff from his enemies, in hopes they'd be lost forever. Unbeknownst to him, Sumner was friends with the Dream Spirit. Ice Domain never properly recovered. This isn't exactly true, it just never recovered in the span of the known timeline. But it does end with them on a positive trajectory. Besides the Knights of Sky, the Ice Domain had the most casualties at Scorn's hand, losing over 90% of them. Wraith is invincible. As a Dream Spirit, the Wraith cannot be destroyed. When the Jester battled him, he sent the Wraith deeper into the Void of Chaos, but he was very much still alive. Grunch Shack. Most PS1 players are familiar with this, but to the Dark Legacy crowd, this might be some news to you. In I1 on PS1 Legends, you may stumble upon this building with the word Grunch written above the door, an obvious reference to Dr. Seuss's The Grinch. It's a really funny little reference, and a shame it never made face in Dark Legacy's Ice Domain. We'll return to the Grunch when we discuss its role in EU, which is not what you might think. DIB 626 meaning. DIB 626 is Mike Howey's player code, and the childish thing you guessed it stood for. No, you were 100% correct. Coin rooms take place outside of space and time, something else hinted at before, but yes, the 9 liminal space coin levels do not take place in the familiar reality of the game, but rather sub-pockets outside of space and time. While anyone can accidentally slip into a liminal space, only devs can freely come and go between them. 5-way shot can be bought in the PS2 prototype. Yeah, it's in the shop in the 0.167 build. We've returned it to the shop with a mod for the 1.3 patch. Junk coins. This refers to how the coin room coin items work. The character they unlock is actually tied to the room metadata itself, not the coin object. So if you swap the metadata to another coin room, you can unlock that character instead. and if you use metadata that is not a coin room, they show up as junk. In the 0.37 build, the coins in S4 are also junk. Plague Fiend is the most influential guardian. Also something mentioned in our last video, the Plague Fiend has the highest body count and largest singular influence of any of Scorn's guardians, having a role in the Sky Dominion, Forsaken Province, and Ice Domain Conquest. He and his fleet also assist in pinning down the Valkyries in the castle's stronghold, preventing them from getting an upper hand over the Lycan invaders. Animal devs. We've already discussed Pojo and Hammy, but there are a few more animal devs in the lore. There is Fossilis, who takes the form of a fox in the modern era, Noble, a Gila monster, and Fuller, a lynx. The latter three are dungeon devs that took on an animal form to hide better from Bennett's. Cutscene mistakes overlooked by Scat. According to KJ, the discrepancies between the cutscenes of the legend items and their appearances in the actual level can be contributed to Mondo Media mistaking the scene, and Steve Scat Carson, the art director, failing to catch it in time. JGaunt Discord server. We mentioned the JGaunt bot in the previous tier, but it actually has a dedicated server as well. It's designed to both test the bot and leave suggestions or questions. I'll leave a link to it, but it's not very active. Rat Warrior is a Hammy reference. This is more of a theory, but some people believe that the Rat Warrior character on Dark Legacy, played with code RAT333, is a reference to PS1's Hammy the Nervous Hamster, but this is unconfirmed. Fossilis. Ernie Fossilis is the voice of the narrator in the Flanagan Gauntlets.
Let's see you get out of here. Good cooperation.
And the dev god character named after him in lore played the same role. Fossilis served as a mediator for the little games that made up the Dungeon Days era. He kept score and fine-tuned the hero's sigil's instructions. He sided with Flanagan and the dungeon devs during the Civil War, but it wasn't because he disagreed with Bennett's. Fossilis believed that they should invest in sentient creations, but that Bennett's method of waging war was uncouth of him. He was also confident that Flanagan's side would win, and he preferred to be on the winning side. Following the Dev War, Fossilis was the first dungeon dev captured by Bennett's. Bennett and his top generals attempted to combine their energy to actually destroy Fossilis, as a test to see if it was possible. While it failed, his consciousness was scattered across the universe, taking him years to rebuild himself into a singular form. In the modern age, he takes the shape of an orange fox, and goes by the name Cavian. He only remembers bits and pieces of his life prior to Bennett's attempt to atomize him. Temple of the Magi is a dev temple. The large Temple of the Magi, prominently displayed in the second level of the Desert Realm, was constructed by the Ancient Jackal to where they would commune with the devs. The temple was cosmically linked to the Dev Lab, where the two groups would freely and commonly interact with each other. In the modern age, that link is far sealed, but there are still cracks, making it possible to warp to the Dev Lab, as done by the Yellow Wizard. Luckily for him, the devs were absent at the time, apart from KJ, who dismissed him.
Scorn voice lines grouped in with the summoner lines in the files. The Scorn voice lines you get when you leave a level and miss something important.
You'll never defeat my guardian.
Are grouped in with summoner's voice lines in the files. Though they are two different characters, they are voiced by the same person, which is probably why, and it was likely just easier than making a new folder for it, considering it's only 5 lines.
Emmy in the Eggplant. This is referring to the Dreamcast dev who was called Emmy in the game files, and seems to have an affinity for eggplants, as evident by the one on their desk and the pedicel on their head. Just another example of these teams showing their personality in their creations. And with that, we have reached the end of part 2. Remember to tune into the next part, where we will finish the remaining tiers. There are a couple of entries we skipped this time around, as to not repeat ourselves in details presented in previous topics. Thank you for watching, and keep an eye out for our next episode, where we will be covering our take on the Gauntlet story, had Summer and his champions failed to liberate the world from Scorn. Fare thee well, heroes.
This is too funny when I just pause.